interviewed the three boards, and then they had a brief discussion afterward. There was no consensus.
All right, it's 7 o'clock, so we're going to get the show on the road. Welcome, everybody, to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Calling to order. The board does not write the zoning ordinance, but does have the authority to grant relief from it where practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship would result. The board will vote on each agenda item following a public hearing. Use variance requests a minimum of 6 affirmative votes in order to grant the requested variances. Non-use variance requests require a minimum of 5 affirmative votes in order to grant the variances. If you would like to request that the board table or adjourn the case due to the absence of a full board, which tonight we are missing 2 people, so we only have 7, you must inform the chairperson immediately after the public hearing. Petitioners shall do their best to limit presentations to 10 minutes. Each participant in a public hearing shall do their best to limit comments to 3 minutes. All right. So it looks like we're just down 2 people for... There's the minutes from last meeting. Is there a motion or amendment to the minutes?
Are we doing a roll call?
We don't need to really see it since we can see it. I mean, we can if you want. No.
That's okay.
Yeah. Any amendments or...
I move approval of the minutes as presented.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll support.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor by signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. There is no old or unfinished business, correct, Mr. Murphy?
Correct.
Okay, so we will move to the first case of the new business, case number 22-07-20 at 400 East Lincoln Avenue. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Murphy.
This site should look familiar to most zoning board members. In March, the ZBA granted a use variance and a related parking variance in order to establish a restaurant in the northmost tenant space of this multi-tenant building. Obviously, that did not move forward, and the new petitioner is in front of you today. This site is located on Lincoln, just south of our current location. It's in the city's mixed-use 1 zoning district, which allows for a wide variety of uses. Professional office to medical office, religious institutions, vet clinics, daycares, single-family, multi-family homes as well. There are 6 equal-sized tenant suites, and the petitioner is proposing to convert each of those, so all of the 6 tenant suites, into individual carry-out restaurant suites. And these suites are available to rent to individual entrepreneurs. So the common term that's used today is ghost kitchens, and we'll let the petitioner explain what that plan of operation means to this proposal. But as some board members may recall, several months ago, there was a mildly similar proposal in its use concept on Woodward Avenue, and staff regards this type of operation as essentially, according to the ordinance, it's very similar in nature to a carry-out restaurant in that food is being prepared. That's the dominant purpose of the floor plan, and there's arguably a very small service counter in which an individual comes to pick up their food. If you go to a carry-out pizza place, you might go yourself and pick up the pizza, or you would have a third party through an app provide that. So someone is going to the site to pick up the food. It's operating in that fashion. So there's no customer seating. Again, we consider it a carry-out restaurant, which is of the wide variety of uses in this zoning district. Unfortunately, it's not one of the uses that's allowed. So the petitioner is seeking a use variance in order to allow their proposed use. Years ago, when the site was originally approved and built, the 20 parking spaces on the property, they provided the equivalent of 1 parking space for 400 square feet of usable floor area. So that allows for a variety of uses that could go in those tenant spaces, as long as they were permitted or special land uses, that they could be handled in many cases administratively. The petitioner hasn't provided an exact floor plan for each of the kitchen suites because they don't have a complete business plan to my degree just yet. So in the absence of a floor plan, the zoning ordinance does allow staff to take 80% of the gross floor area to determine the essentially usable floor area, and that equates to what the minimum required parking is. So based on that calculation of about an 8,300 square foot building, the site would require 34 parking spaces for their use. There are 20 spaces on site, so they're seeking that difference to allow their proposed use. So they're seeking a use variance which requires 6 affirmative votes, and non-use variance which relates to the parking, a waiver of the parking standard. That's a non-use variance, and that would require 5 affirmative votes.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Murphy? Mr. Cladd?
Quick question. Is there anything that prohibits them from parking in front of those overhead doors? I mean, is there a loading space required? I know their floor plan shows that as a main entry, but you have a overhead door as a main entry to a space. Is there anything that precludes them from using that as parking if they striped it? There's plenty of restaurants that have overhead doors with seating around it, and you can park right up against it. That's 5 extra spaces.
And they did not identify that on their site plan or proposed floor plan to modify, to remove those overhead doors so that they could provide those parking spaces. Perhaps that's a conversation that we can have with the petitioner so that we can get an understanding of perhaps those are additional parking spaces that they could have access to. But they did not show modifying the floor plan. So by not modifying the floor plan, technically we can't count those as parking spaces because it would be for access to an overhead door. Now, that doesn't prohibit somebody from parking in front of it on a periodic basis, but it does allow for loading, unloading, things of that nature.
Okay. Ms. Zuki?
Thank you.
I'll let the petitioner explain a little further, but I think some of that relates to the fact that they don't have a completely flushed out business plan of knowing how each tenant suite will exactly be used.
Joseph, as I recall, in March, the variance was for 14 spaces for one restaurant. So I don't understand why it's the same variance for 6 restaurants.
That one had a component of dine-in, so it had seating inside, and that's why we regarded it as a traditional dine-in restaurant, which has a much higher parking requirement or requires more on-site parking than a carry-out restaurant. Carry-out restaurant, customers are not coming to the site to sit for an extended period of time and consume their food. So this is a much lower parking count, and this petitioner is proposing to use the whole entire building.
So was the variance that they were already granted for the one that we approved taken into the calculation overall, or are we looking at the whole entire?
You're looking at it as a fresh set of eyes because they didn't proceed forward with that approval. That one's, so to speak, null and void, and then they don't get the credit, or so to speak, a carry forward of what the previous variance was granted. We're looking at an entirely different concept for the entire building, not just one tenant suite.
So, I'm sorry, that plan didn't move forward? I thought they were working on the build out of it, but now it's not.
Perhaps the petitioner can give us an understanding, but this proposal is to use the entire building as kitchen suites, not what was previously granted approval, which was it was an ice custard establishment that had a truck inside the building and some seating inside the building as well. That's not part of this proposal.
I understand. I guess I didn't realize that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? One for me, although I pretty much know the answer, but just confirming. We grant this, that's not to say that in the future someone can't, as long as it's still carry out, the variances will carry over if we grant it, but if it switches over to anything else, then they'd have to come back before us.
Correct, and that was the same question that was posed several months in March when it was the carry-out restaurant.
Just want to make sure everyone has that in mind. Yep, thank you. All right, if there's no further questions from Mr. Murphy, if the petitioner is present, they may come forward and state their name and their case.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for listening to us tonight. My name is Stephen Hoffman, architect, 22870 Bentley Drive, Northville. I'm here with the owners of the building and Simon Elia and Niemer. They're here. I appreciate your assessment, Joe, and I just want to clarify a few things, but mostly it's correct. We don't really consider this a carryout for the fact that the public isn't going to be welcome to walk up to that counter. It's all Uber, Eats and that kind of thing. So there won't be any public component. The other thing is, you're right about the overhead doors, since based on the 80%, we really didn't need those spaces in front of the overhead doors. But in the future, if some tenant wanted to make them a storefront and park there, that would be up to them, and it would go before the building department and get approval that way. I did add some handicap parking, and it still didn't deter from the required parking spots that are required. Beyond that, if we get granted the use, then we really don't need a parking variance in my calculations if it's all industrial. And looking at the ordinance, there are in the neighborhood district a category of catering, and that's pretty much what this is. Its food is catered and picked up, or delivered for that matter. So I put the use here as a catering, and it's under the industrial F1 use, which in then respect only requires 1 in 400 square feet per parking spot, and we are more than abundantly able to handle that, if not more. Like you said, we have at least 5 more spots we could throw towards that quantity. But other than that, as Joe mentioned, the uses that are allowed now, multifamily, doctors, dentist office, there's no way parking can handle any of those uses. So this building is probably more conducive to an industrial use with 1 in 400 parking spots. And that's not a hardship that came upon us. There's just not enough, unless you ask for a lot of, a parking variance to make one little restaurant work, but that would really screw up all the other tenants. So at this point, we're asking for the use variance and not so much the parking variance if we're granted that. If the owners want to talk about maybe what the ghost kitchen concept is all about and their intention of how this is going to be operated, leased out, and otherwise.
My name is Simon Alaya. Just to kind of give a background of the concept that we're looking to get approved to add on to the ghost kitchens, as Stefan was mentioning. What we're looking to do is bring, not necessarily even just any type of restaurants to the city of Royal Oak. We're looking to bring specific types of authentic cuisines, whether it's from, restaurants around the country or maybe somewhere in Ann Arbor or Detroit that can't necessarily cater to the Royal Oak area. So we're looking to bring some good authentic restaurants to the city of Royal Oak. And with that said, as far as having the unit set up, we're looking to have these particular tenants kind of set up their own units to, from like a logistics standpoint of putting their restaurants together themselves based on the equipment that they need to operate their business. So what we anticipate to do is reach out to restaurants that we feel like can bring some good authentic cuisines to the city of Royal Oak and kind of reach out to them that way and see who has interest in ghost kitchens in this area. And as he mentioned, it's specifically just delivery only. So it would be Uber Eats, DoorDash. No one would be able to walk up to the restaurant and pick up the food. It would be strictly delivery only.
Okay. Is there any questions for the petitioner? Mr. Moore, Mr. Eddy?
So the previous plan that we had before us in space, I'm guessing it's F. Is that not going forward now? Though I believe it was an ice cream place, Custard. I think they were approved to go into that space and granted a parking variance. So I'm just trying to.
Yeah, they did not move forward. We had finalize
Okay.
the movement of that particular venture. So
Okay.
yes, it is not moving.
So that's an empty, so it
That
is
is
all.
completely
all six.
not,
Okay.
yeah,
All right, thank you.
not an option. Yep.
Mr. Eddy.
Okay. I had I have a few questions.
Sure.
First is regarding the use variance. So Section A of the use variance states that the property could not be reasonably used for the purposes permitted in that zone. And as Mr. Murphy said at the beginning, there are several permitted uses. Could you give us some examples of efforts you've made to find tenants to use this in a permitted fashion?
The property has been listed now for about 9 months. We've had a variety of different tenants. No one really wanted to move forward with the process of going through planning, so that was more of a non-starter for us on the ownership side. So
You've had it listed for sale or
for lease.
For which
lease.
one?
Yeah, for lease.
For lease.
Yes. So at that point, whoever would want to make the leap of faith, efforts of coming forth, in front of the board, obviously Simon and their group showed strong interest with background of restaurateur that I felt was comfortable enough to, support and, come forth. And if you guys grant, I'd be more than willing to lease out to, what their concept is looking like.
Okay, but I guess so have you lowered the rent that you're looking for in order to perhaps find someone who could
Well, we
use it?
make substantial investments to the business or to the property itself, so everything is correlated with an investment portion, so it's within line.
Okay,
of
but
what-
when you made the investment, you knew what the permitted purposes were,
Correct. Yeah, and,
Okay.
and I did know that also the parking was a very fine line of, what will be approved and what's not. He is here making the effort of trying to see if that works, with the city and the planning board on leaping to a situation where the whole building would be pretty much permitted for their use. So,
Okay.
but just so you do know, the lease rate that we are offering is within line of Royal Oak. I am multi-tenant owner of several buildings in Royal Oak, so I'm very in touch with
Okay,
that,
well-
and I've marketed based on that.
Well, I've just seen other like office uses, medical office. I think we have a case coming up where someone wants to use this as a medical office. Why do you suppose this specific location people aren't? If it's comparable rates to what other people are taking, why is it they're not?
So I could
Person
tell you
here.
that parking is a major issue over there for, as our architect has explained, it would be more difficult for an office use, or I shouldn't say office, maybe office is probably the least, but I would say definitely more of a medical facility or where there's more in and out traffic on a, per hour basis that would be very hard to park this site. So this being a very low use and, 1, 2 at a time coming in and out, just seemed more of an ideal scenario.
Okay. How long ago did you purchase the property?
2018, I believe.
Okay. Were there tenants at that time?
There was fully occupied
Okay.
with a variety of different tenants. We made a significant investment into that property to up the standards of that particular area, and we've left one tenant in there from the original purchase.
But so it was fully occupied and the parking wasn't an issue then in 2018.
Correct, and you had a print shop that was a one-man operation. You had a tinting place that was a one-man operation. Those are tenants that were occupying the space at the time. So the kind of the new format was higher paying tenants and higher caliber of tenants on just like a single use individual basis suite.
Okay. I'm just going to let you know I'm going to have a hard time deciding that. So section D is that the alleged hardship has not been created by a person presently having an interest in the property. I'm going to have a hard time with that, considering that you purchased the property fully occupied and.
The rents were $600 a month.
Okay.
They do not support.
I'm just letting you know. I just want to let you know that that's one of the. Now, the other question I had is regarding the non-use variance, the parking. So, on other occasions, sometimes the formula they use is out of date due to like Uber wasn't around when that formula was created. In this case, though, it seems directly on point, like a carry-out restaurant. A person drives up, gets their food, and leaves in the same way that someone would be taking Uber, driving up, and leaving. So why do you think the formula would be off in this case?
I would probably let the professional speak on that.
I think Uber or Lyft carry-out delivery service would pick up more than one person's food at a time. So if you picked up 3 people's food, there's 2 less people running in. So, and this time frame that they stay in and do that is minimal. So, again, you're right. When this building was built in 1980s, 40 some years ago, they didn't have this service, and it was an industrial building, and it didn't need a lot of parking. And now your zoning ordinance says that it's fit for all these other uses that are totally, unless they built a garage over it, there's no way that those uses can be viable to the tenant or the owner and make it worthy of renting out. I do know that the previous architect, the friends of mine, Ron and Roman, did a wonderful job at making that building beautiful, kind of high class, and it was probably a good a purchase for the current owners with little amount of work, but that amount of upgrade to that building costs money, and it's a beautiful building for that industrial area and for the use. So it just is, like I said, this use that they're using is very conducive to low parking, quick people in and out, and not so much for doctors, dentists. I mean, multifamily, it just doesn't work for that building. So that's why it was a good choice for them to go this route, and they see the need based on all the wonderful eating places they have here. Why not bring in even more variety and a better service to your city with all these quick, the way people are. I just ate at Cuisina just before here. More than 90% of the people were walking in grabbing their bags from a shelf. I don't think that this is going to be the case, but that's the way the trend is. I'm the architect for Olga's and Applebee's and all the Wendy's renovations. And in every single case, they're cutting down on seating. It's all about carry out and Uber and these fast turnaround, because that's, and of course drive-throughs, and that is the trend these days. And this business is just ideal for this situation. That's how we are today.
Thank you. Any other questions for the petitioner? I'll go ahead, and then I'll get Mr. Gavin and then Mr. Moore.
Okay. Just thinking about parking, just from a practical perspective, and this is something you seem to have a fair bit of experience with. Because I'm looking at this, we've got six units, and how many spots was it? 19? Is it 20?
It's actually 19. I'm not counting the one by the dumpster, because there's no
that
way
makes
you
sense.
could actually
You wouldn't be able to
get
get in and out of there. So 19 spaces, and even assuming you're kind of on, like, what's staffing like in these? Like, if all 6 of these were fully staffed?
We predict based on, each tenant that do the math is only 3.
Okay.
And that's probably more than enough in most of these cases.
Okay, so assuming it's 3 times 6, that's 18 right there, so that essentially leaves 1 extra space then.
But then we didn't even count the overhead door spaces.
The overhead door spaces. That's just kind of where I'm at, is just like, making sure that there's going to be ample parking, because I know these Uber guys can be quick, and in and out, but it's still, if you're fully staffed and things are busy and you've got even just one Uber driver there all at a time for each 6 of these, it's going to be tight. So I wonder what thought you've put into that, and how those, if it's really busy, how that would be addressed.
Well, again, we would, the owner of the spot, if he knew he wasn't using his overhead door, he's got a really nice parking spot for himself. So technically, we have, would you say 5 extra, make it 24, and I think that's more than ample enough for the purposes that we're doing.
All right.
Oh, sorry.
No, that was it. I'm done.
Mr. Moore?
Okay, I thought I was clear on my previous question, but now I'm not. Did I hear you say that you've kept a tenant? So are there 5 kitchens or 6?
The window tinting guy is there just temporarily, paying.
Okay, so the one that says use auto detailing, is that
That's the window tinting guy.
and that one's going to become a kitchen?
Correct.
In fact, he's not even there now. I think he just parked some cars there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's
So
like
it is
it's a
6.
sub office for them to
By
just
point of
store
view, you know
stuff,
that.
more or less.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
All right. Any other questions for the petitioner? All right, seeing none, before we open up the public comment, just want to remind you we are down 2 board members. This requires a use variance, which means you need 6 affirmative votes, which means you can only afford to have 1 person be in the negative. So think about that, and then let me know whether or not you want us to adjourn this to next month, where we may or may not have a full board again, or go ahead this month.
I guess that's up to Mr. Reedy.
Yeah. Well, talk amongst yourselves. I'm going to open up the public comment. Is there anyone here for public comment here to speak on this case? Come forward and state your name.
Yep. Excuse me. Hi, everybody. My name is Stephanie Bishop, and we own the properties 822 and 826, which is actually, if you pull, I sent an email explaining the concerns I had about this particular development, and I don't know if you guys have had a chance to read it at all. So the history of Knowles Street is very colorful. I've only moved as a resident about a year ago, but my longtime significant other, who was unable to come tonight because he's working late, has owned 826 since 2009, I think. And I've been with him that whole time, so I've spent a lot of time at his house. So I've watched kind of the development, what's happened to the building over the years. And then when these guys bought it, they did do a really nice job painting it. And we bought these buildings, these homes, knowing that the trade-off was we got location close to the city, but we do overlook into a parking lot of a industrial, light use industrial building, basically. And that was the trade-off we came to. But the idea of bringing in 6 new restaurants into this street that already has insane traffic issues, it now has become a thoroughfare for Main Street, especially during the construction. People try to sneak around. And then with the recycling center that's down the street, there's constant vibration in the neighborhood. And it's pretty much a pocket of Royal Oak that has not gotten much care or attention as residents. The rest of that area has had berms put in, things to do to improve the quality of life, but those of us on that street for years until the contract change was littered every time with trash, constantly. And there's people like us that have been slowly moving in and bringing it up to the standard of the rest of the city of Royal Oak, where, I've lived in Royal Oak in probably 4 different houses, 1 rental and 3 other that were owned. And so I feel very connected to the city, and I feel very proud, But looking at how this street has been treated since I moved in, it's been like complete disregard. And then I just so happened to catch this notice in the mail. And when I saw that it was 6 restaurants coming in, my first thought was, I'm not going to be able to sit in the backyard. I'm going to be, none if they're going to be unique ethnic restaurants. I love ethnic food, but have you ever been outside of a Burger King? So now my backyard, and at 826, we built this beautiful patio. It overlooks the dumpster that's right there is now going to be filled with food waste. And you know what happens with food waste. I mean, it's not even 50 feet from the back patio. Those yards are small. And I would encourage people to come look. I did attach pictures to my email showing. And then the idea of, I've noticed since there's been a new owner of the building that even the area behind the building that's not visible is no longer even maintained. It's not mowed. There's debris back there that just sits. So that tells me there's already not that much good neighborly relationships. When you live there, it's very clear. I see what happens there every day. And the window film people are there, and they're very good neighbors. They're very quiet. They work 9 to 5. But this now means that for the 4 of us that back up, we all use our backyards pretty heavily. We're now going to have food smells. We're going to have increased traffic of Uber drivers going around because you want to cut through the neighborhood instead of going through Main Street. We're going to have increased rats. I know it because that's just part of what happens with restaurants. We already have rats in that neighborhood. We work hard at trying to maintain them. But, so I have a lot of empathy. I'm a business person. I understand the situation they're in, trying to find a way to use this building. But I do, listening to the story, it sounds like they came in, raised rates, and now they can't fill the rest of their spots. And that's really unfortunate, especially with all the things that happened with COVID. But I'm a homeowner, and my value is going to plummet even more now. And who's going to want to buy the house when it's, I didn't move to downtown Royal Oak by the restaurants. I moved to the vicinity. And so that has a huge impact on all of us.
Thank you.
Yep.
Is there anyone else here to speak on public comment regarding this case? All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment. Gentlemen, do you want us to move forward with this, or would you like us to delay for a month?
What is the next agenda?
You can come forward.
What is the next meeting?
Second Thursday in August. I don't know the date off the top of my head.
The 11th.
Yeah, I would postpone it then.
Okay. Then in which case,
Motion.
is there a motion to postpone till next month?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion?
I'm sorry, who made the
Oh,
motion?
I did.
Mr. Gavin, Mr.
Okay,
Clay.
okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Any discussion? All right. I agree, without a full board and it being so close, I could understand your concerns. So not a guarantee that we'll have more people, but you never know. So if there's no other discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, you will be
We'll see you back next month.
you'll be the first item potentially on old business.
Correct. And just so the public is aware, the public hearing was held open and closed, so there won't be another public hearing notice. Just keep it on your list of things to do on the 11th of August.
There'll still
We'll
be public comment, yeah.
Yes, there'll be public comment but not a public hearing, since public hearing was already open and closed.
Thank you.
Thank
Do
you.
you have to resubmit anything?
No.
Thank you, everyone.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. No problem. Okay, so we'll move to the next case, 22-07-21 for 3400 Rochester Road. Whenever you are ready, Mr. Murphy.
The site's located on the east side of Rochester Road. It's 1 block north of 13 Mile Road. It's in the city's neighborhood business zoning district, and it's improved with a vacant 1-story building, which was recently occupied and was for quite some time, professional office. The petitioner proposes to convert the building to medical office for their chiropractic clinic, and Professional office requires fewer parking spaces than medical office. Professional office requires 1 parking space for 225 square feet of usable floor area. The prior professional office required 10 off-street parking spaces, and the site only has 7. For a very long time, through our records, it was always some type of professional office, so is simply non-conforming in terms of the number of spaces on the site versus the number of spaces that are required for the previously approved professional office. Converting the building to medical necessitates 1 additional parking space, which obviously the site is unable to accommodate. So our office was unable to administratively approve the petitioner's request to change the use. A medical office requires 1 parking space for 200 square feet of usable floor area. So professional, 1 to 225. Medical, 1 to 200. Slight difference. In this case, it necessitates an additional parking space, which the petitioner is here to seek a waiver from in order to establish their chiropractic clinic at that office, at that location. We did not receive any written public comments with regard to this request, and I'll bring up the floor plan, which the petitioner has indicated very few changes to the interior of the building in order to accommodate their practice.
Okay. Is there any questions for Mr. Murphy? Mr. Clapp?
So are there any allowable uses in this district that will not require variance?
Another professional office.
That's
Other
okay,
uses,
because it's grandfathered essentially.
Yes, correct. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head based on 2,200 square feet of usable floor area. There may very well be, but I don't know off the top of my head. It has been a variety of professional offices over the years.
And then when I drove by there today on Windermere on the south side of the building, it looks like there's 1 hour parking on the street, that maybe they can fit about 3 spaces adjacent to the building. I know it's not theirs,
Yes.
but it's adjacent to the building right there. So
Correct.
there's potentially about 3 spaces that could work out there.
Yes, there is some available on-street parking directly adjacent.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Murphy? All right, seeing none, the petitioner may come forward and state their name and their case.
Good evening, everyone. Dr. Daniel Judge. I live in Royal Oak, near where they were just talking about, actually. No comment on that. But I've had my practice in Birmingham since 2008, so I have a very good idea of our business level and traffic. That we have a very successful practice, but I'm looking to stop leasing and own a building, and so I found this one, and I think it's a really good fit for the practice. At any given time, we usually have 3 to maybe 4 staff, and typically 2 to 3 patients. I would say at most maybe 4 patients in the office at a time. And so I thought, even though there's only 7 spaces, like you said, with the street parking, you can get another 3, possibly 4 there. And so I think even at our busiest, it will accommodate what we need. I don't think there's anything additional to say, but any questions?
Is there any questions for the petitioner? All right, seeing none, just a reminder, after public comment, which there may or may not be any for, we don't have a full board, but you do need 5 people in affirmative to pass a variance. So I'll ask you whether or not to proceed or delay till next month, where we may or may not be guaranteed same number or more.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Public comment, anyone to speak upon this case? All right, seeing none, what would you like to decide?
I would love a vote, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, then we'll pull it to this side of the board for discussion and or motions. Anyone? Mr. Gavin, I saw your hand first.
Sorry. Quicker. I move approval of the variance as requested.
All right, I'm assuming you're gonna,
I'll support.
okay. Go ahead, Mr. Gavin.
I think with the small amount of the variance needed here with just 1 extra space and given the available on-street parking, I just really don't have a lot of concerns, and my only concern was about the intensity of the use and the number of people that will, be there on average. And sounds, petitioner has already answered that. And on top of that, we received no comments, either written or in person. So I think this would be good. So I think it meets our factors. It would prevent him from using the property for a permitted purpose. It will do substantial justice to his business, obviously, but it will also do substantial justice to other properties in the district. A lesser relaxation would not give the relief needed. The plight of the landowner is due to the unique circumstances of the property. That's the case. He's kind of taken it as is, and it's a small lot, and the hardship has not been created by him. So I think we meet all the factors here.
All right, Mr. Klatt.
No, I trust the doctor has a good handle on his practice and his parking needs, and it seems like the 7 on the lot and the 3 to maybe even 4 along the side of the building should serve the needs for his business. He would know best, and if he's willing to make the investment in the area, I trust him.
All right. Any other comments? Mr. Moore.
I think this is a unique property, and we're only talking about the one space here, and typically in my experience, chiropractic appointments are relatively quick medical appointments, so I don't foresee where there would be stacking issues with, patients waiting a long time and things like that, so I'm comfortable with this.
Okay. Any other comments? Well, I agree with everything that's been stated, so I too will be voting affirmative on this one. All right, seeing no other comments, we're going to motion to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And raise your hand just in case. All those opposed, say nay and raise your hand. All right. Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, sir. Best of luck to you.
I appreciate your time and look forward to being a business owner in Royal Oak.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Congratulations.
Enjoy your short commute.
Okay, next case, 220722, 722 South Connecticut Avenue. Whenever you are ready, Mr. Murphy.
Subject property is located on the west side of South Connecticut. It's just north of East Lincoln and west of South Campbell. Petitioner is proposing to enclose the existing covered front porch to accommodate additional living space. So you can see on the screen in front of you the current circumstance. The front porch, covered, unenclosed front porch. The minimum required front yard setback, and that's measured to the nearest point of living space. The minimum required front yard setback for this house is 31.3 feet, and that's based on the average of the adjacent dwellings. The existing dwelling maintains a slightly conforming front yard setback of 31.6 feet. So enclosing this existing covered front porch to accommodate additional living space brings living space into the existing front yard setback, and it reduces that front yard setback to 24.3 feet. So they're seeking a waiver in order to have that living space project further out into the required front yard setback. So if the board does grant the variance to enclose the front porch and steps, the petitioner wants to construct another front porch, covered front porch and steps to the front of the new portion of living space, and I'm going to refer to their drawings to illustrate that. I'll hover over the existing porch, covered porch, which they're proposing to enclose, and they would be, we'll say, tacking onto the front of that another covered porch with steps that go off to the side to the driveway side of the house. An unenclosed front porch and steps can project no more than 7 feet into a required front yard setback. Maybe in a simpler fashion to view that, they can be no closer than 24.3 feet from the front property line. And in this case, the front porch and steps would be 19.3 feet from the front property line. So they're seeking a variance in order to allow the front porch and steps to come further into the setback than what's allowed. We did not receive any written correspondence with regard to, no, I apologize, we did receive one, which is included at the end of your report. And that is from the petitioner, so my apologies. No, that was from the petitioner, which was an explanation for a question I had for them. So we did not receive any written public comment.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Any questions for Mr. Murphy? Mr. Moore, Mr. Cladd?
Did you say the new front porch and steps would be covered? Because on their drawings here, it doesn't look covered. If you're looking at like the side elevation there.
Yes, you're correct. It's a long day for me.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
So it's
Good point.
not
I
covered.
appreciate you bringing that
Okay.
up. It's uncovered. It's allowed to be covered, but it is uncovered. Yes,
Okay.
you're correct.
Okay.
Mr. Cladd?
I guess from an encroachment standpoint, it looks like the new staircase would encroach less than the existing staircase does into the front yard setback. Based on the number of steps I can see, running up to that existing open porch versus the side turn staircase that's only coming out 3 feet. So overall, it's not it's encroaching less than what it was before. Overall, enclosed, open
Yes,
enclosed.
you can definitely look at it that way. But the fact that they're making additional living space by enclosing it enters into a new realm of ordinance requirements. But in terms of just the structure itself and how far it projects out in front of the home, you are correct. It's essentially the same.
Thanks.
Mr. Gavin?
So from the letter in here, it sounds like it was at one point prior to this current homeowner buying it, this was actually an enclosed front porch, is my understanding. So do we know, were there any prior variances for that, or was it grandfathered and by removing it and bringing it in line, it is?
I believe that actually is for 646, not the actual residency.
No, this is the different letter. It's the one dated June 6th. It's on the letterhead from father and son.
Yes, and I did reach out to the assessor's office
yeah.
to find out about that, and I couldn't find any records. We didn't have any records in the planning division's file with regard to it being previously enclosed. We see a few instances of this in the past, and I'm going to show the photograph of the existing home. For this vintage of a house, and our architects can attest to this, it wasn't uncommon to have an enclosed front porch. Under the assessing code and under the building code, it was still regarded as a front porch. It was just enclosed in glass. It wasn't living space. It wasn't assessed as living space. It didn't qualify as living space under the building code, but it may very well have been enclosed in glass. That was not an uncommon feature for a home of this style.
Okay.
Back in the day.
But so they're taking this a step further and are turning it into living space.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Back to Mr. Klatt's point, it's like, visually, are you going to see a whole lot of difference? Whether it was an enclosed porch versus, you may, the petitioner's drawings do illustrate more than just what would be glass enclosure of what you see on the screen. They're putting in more smaller windows, definitely smaller windows. It gets a different front facade look.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Murphy? All right, seeing none, the petitioner may come forward, state their name and case.
Good afternoon or good evening. Jim Bishop, Father and Son Construction, address 5032 Rochester Road in Troy. I don't know, Mike should be here, he's our architect. I'm just the project manager, but we're not looking to make this additional living space. There's going to be no electric and no heat in there. The problem with this porch is there's a 3-foot parapet wall that goes all the way around. So when snow and water blows in there, it just over and over and over keeps rotting the floor out. And there's a basement underneath that porch as well that's getting damaged. So by us enclosing that, I don't necessarily, again, I don't know what your guys' particular codes are, would consider that living space. It's just trying to keep the water out of it is what we're trying to do. And I have some pictures. I don't know if you guys want to take a look. It's a house. I think you had one, but I brought some more. And the front steps, originally, the front steps were going to remain, but there is a code that you can't have steps up to a door. So that's when we changed it for the front porch. The homeowner would like to leave the steps as they are. I don't know if I have to get a separate variance for that, not have a landing space at the door, but that's the way this house is, about 2-3 doors down from there. So basically, I mean, that's it. It's, again, I wouldn't consider it living space since it's not heated. We're not doing any electric. We're simply just trying to keep the water from rotting out that floor.
All right, so then on your floor plans, which doesn't show any wall removal, any door removal, or any windows removal, you're basically confirming that you're just enclosing that for water.
Yes. The front door is going to remain. The living room window is going to remain. Everything on the existing house is going to stay. We're just going to fill in from that 3-foot parapet wall in window space. And when she sits out on the porch, because I originally had a proposed sliders so that that whole opening is window. She wants a little more privacy when she's sitting out on the front porch, and we're going to enclose it in and then match the siding that's existing on the house.
Okay. Other questions for Mr. Klatt?
I was just going to say the door would be more of a building code issue than a variance issue. And then I guess my other question too, the letter, you keep mentioning basement, but the section shows a crawl space below the porch. Is it a crawl or a basement?
It's, I was told by the architect today, because we went over this again, it's an actual concrete, it's kind of like a root cellar. A lot of homes would have that. Oh, he's got it a crawl on there.
Yeah, so it's not a full basement, so yeah, it would be a crawl.
Yeah.
Is it accessible?
Still, it's you don't want water in your crawl space either.
No.
Yeah.
Ms. Zukin, did I see?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, isn't there some other way to waterproof a porch so that it doesn't leak into the
Well,
crawl
I
space?
think that would create a hardship as well, yes. I would have to tear the whole thing down and completely redo it. And it would jump this job up to $40,000, $50,000 to waterproof that space. It would change the look of the front of the house. But yes, it is possible to do that.
You need a membrane and probably some decking on top of that to conceal it,
Yeah.
either floor drain or scuppers.
Did I see a hand over on the side? Nope. All right. Any other questions for the petitioner? Mr. Gavin?
It's really more for Mr. Murphy. Is the fact that there's not going to be any heating, or does that change anything from the city's perspective, or is it still, still kind of the fact that it's enclosed may in the possibility of it becoming living space?
It meets all the standards for being conditioned living space. They're proposing to add insulated walls, fully operational windows and a door. It's enclosed space. You could put in if you didn't have duct work, you could always have heat from electric heat boards. You could also have the heat pump.
Mm-hmm.
You could condition it in that fashion. So just because it doesn't have duct work going to it doesn't necessarily mean that we don't view it as it's being completely enclosed and insulated. It's to the point where it's in living space.
Okay.
However you want to view it, but technically under the building code, it's getting there.
Yeah.
And it'll change the assessing of it as well. It'll become living space for that.
For that purpose?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I just wanted to double check. Thank you.
The floor and ceiling will not be insulated. We're just simply going to insulate The inside of the porch floor is rotted. The inside of the parapet wall is rotted, so we have to pull all that out and change it. And while the facade is off, she asked us to throw insulation. Now, what her plan is with some baseboard heat later on, I know the room is only 7 foot wide, so I don't know what you could actually use that for a living, but it's not part of our plan. By any means.
Mr. Klein.
Did you reach out to any neighbors, the immediate neighbors, any objections to this? Did you have any conversations with them?
Yeah, no. And I think the lady right next door, her front porch is enclosed too. Did you guys see these pictures of the one down the street?
Yeah.
We did, thank you.
Oh, okay.
All right. Any other questions for the petitioner? All right. Well, obviously I'm going to turn it over to public comment, which there really isn't any. But you're going to have to decide whether you want us to go forward, which you need 5 affirmative votes, or to delay it till next month, which may or may not have more people here.
Right. Yeah, I would prefer to just go forward.
Okay. Well, let me ask first, any public comment? All right, no public comment, if there's nobody in here. So we'll bring it to the side of the board. Is there discussion and or motion? Anyone want to jump out? Mr. Gavin,
I'll move approval as requested.
is there a second?
I'll second as well. Keep it consistent.
All right, thank you. Mr. Gavin.
Table's leaning this way.
This one, I'm a little more on the fence on this one, but I feel like in the long run, I just come down on the side of, we already have so many enclosed front porches. It's possible this one may have been, enclosed at one point. Maybe it wasn't insulated or whatever to make it living space, but it's just a common sight in the city. And as Mr. Klatt pointed out, with the landing being put there, it'll actually shorten up things a little bit, just from an overall perspective, so it would intrude a little bit less. So for those reasons, I think we meet the factors. It would, it's a condition that needs to be remedied because we can't have, damaged front porches. It would lead to too much damage to the house and to the front porch itself. It's going to need to be addressed in some way, shape, or form. It needs to be addressed, and that would unreasonably prevent her from using that portion of her house for a permitted purpose. The variance does substantial justice to the applicant because it will address that water penetration issue, and it will do substantial justice to other property owners in the district, as this is a common type of enclosed front porch. There are other ones in the area, and we've also provided notice and received no comments whatsoever, either written or oral. A lesser relaxation would not give substantial relief. We could deny this, and they could go and completely repair the front porch. But as the project manager from Father and Son pointed out, it would be much more expensive to the property owner. The plight of the landowner is due to the unique circumstances of the property. I think the water penetration is a unique circumstance. And the alleged hardship has not been created by any person presently having an interest. I don't think she created this problem that she's trying to address. So I think we meet all those factors. I was a little more on the fence on this when I first read it, but I think overall I'm in favor of it.
All right. Mr. Klatt, anything to add?
No, I think Mr. Gavin nailed it. I think the proximity to the street's the same, the bulk is the same. I guess the only downside, we're not here to critique design, but it does feel more enclosed. I guess you are trying to close it, but from a visual standpoint, like the house on 646, that feels open, transparent with the glass, where this has more siding than windows. So I would encourage you to add more glass. But
I tried. I wanted to fill those openings with sliders but I can try. I can go back to her and say, hey, Jeff said that
she's going to send me the bill then. She'll send me the bill.
It's curtains, right? Curtains for you. All right. Any other Ms. Hugan?
I came in here thinking I was going to definitely vote no because it already protruded too far in front of the other two houses. But as Mr. Klatt pointed out, the protrusion isn't anymore. I don't think we're supposed to consider which remedy though would be more expensive than the other. Because it looks a lot better to me the way it is, but so I'm still not sure. I'm going to take another minute if anybody else has something to say.
Any other discussion?
Are you wanting another comment so you have another minute?
No. I can make a comment. I am going to be in favor of this one because although I do agree that I prefer the more openness compared to what the other house looks like, they are making the situation to the street better by turning the stairs, and the unique hardship of the case is the fact that this porch was put on and it happens to be most forward portion of the houses here. Had this actually been set back to be in line with the other ones, there wouldn't be any problem at all with this. So that's, unfortunately, they can't help it. This house was built this way before some of that stuff was in line. So they're not trying to come forward. Like, if they were going to put another porch on top of the stairs coming out, I'd have a bigger problem with that. But they're just simply including what's is already there. So I don't see a problem with this. Other than, like Mr. Klatt, I wish it was more open.
We'll split the bill.
Any other comments? All right, seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. In case you are granted your variance, best of luck to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All righty. Mr. Murphy, any other business?
Nope.
Okay, don't think so. Is there any general public comment? I don't see any. All right, thank you. Is there any mystery motion then? Ms. Hukin?
I'll move to adjourn.
Is there a second? Oh, Mr. Reddy jumps in on that one. All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, we're done.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Go home.